UMass?
Oh, I'm going to UMass. That is how we start. There is no better way to start a college football breakdown of the egregious, greasy games. I will be on the ground at West Point, Army, UMass. That's one of the games we're going to cover here because we got you guys covered. We did our Tuesday episode. We covered the big time games. We covered the marquee games. But the people want more, and we are here to give you more at Odd Shopper. I'm Ben Raza. That is Matt Kajeski. I know you said to people on Tuesday, there's a handful of greasy, under the radar games that you think have some value. So I assume you're pretty excited to dive into some of these lesser known schools.
Yeah, I love this slate. Sorry for asking you about UMass right as you clicked record. Here I am,
love
just talking in the background. But yeah, there's a ton of really good games in the G5, especially. You can just run down the list. Troy plays Texas State. That's an awesome game. Miami, Ohio versus Ohio. I think that's the game of the year in the MAC. And that's just a couple of these games. We have a ton of really interesting contests. If you're willing to dive deep into some of the G5, mix in a little, Maryland Northwestern games like that as well.
It's going to be, again, for these schools, some of the bigger games on the slate could be conference championship defining. And I do think some of these lines are not as efficient. So welcome if you haven't joined us before, or if you're coming back for more. Either way, please support the show. Whether you're listening in podcast form, watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You really not want to be one of the first 100,000 that have subscribed to this channel. Come on now, be part of this community. Let's get to it because we got a lot of games and we are going to go through them. Troy and Texas State. This was a request, a great request from the fans. 6-point spread, 53.5 point total, give or take. We've seen Texas State and their outrageous offense at times. They can't hold on to the ball. Can they handle a team like Troy, or is this a Troy spot where they kind of just slowly and methodically work them down?
I think Troy is the rightful favorite. This was a game I actually did bet initially, showing some line movement throughout the week, predicting that would occur. And it's bounced all over the place. I ended up buying out of my position, which was Troy minus 4.5. Had I kept that, probably would have gotten some line value. I'm seeing some 5s and 5.5s out there. But I'm still happy with my decision. I think this is an exceedingly volatile game. Like, heavy money came in on Texas State right away, and then immediate money came right back on Troy. Troy's the away team. I think they've been fortunate in certain games this year, and they've also been unlucky in a couple spots as well. Against James Madison, they outgained them yards per play. This team is built on defense, where they rank 5th overall in the country in total defensive efficiency. They're top 5 in both run defense and pass defense. Now, this is going to be an awesome matchup because Texas State just has an electric offense, 31st in total efficiency. And we've seen this team just rip off routine big plays, but they can't take care of the ball. Their turnovers have been a death sentence to the program, and they've lost games they should have won. They've also, they beat Baylor. They probably should have lost that game. They got outgained yards per play. But it's extremely volatile backing Texas State at this point. Turnovers, generally speaking, they're a stat that regresses. But man, at this point, I can't play the Texas State side, but I don't think I can play Troy either because this Texas State offense could absolutely decimate them. Texas State's defense actually pretty good too. They're 51st overall defensive efficiency. Troy's weakness is on offense. So to me, this is an awesome game, real life game. I tentatively side with Troy, but I'm not going to bet it. I'm just going to get my popcorn ready and enjoy it.
Feel the same way. So you talked about kind of that initial, it's on the move. 6s are popping up all over the place. I'm not betting Troy at a 6 point. If it ever touched 7, I would have to look to Texas State. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that'd be a little much, but right now I see 3 5.5s and a couple 6s, and some of the 6s are starting to take a little pressure. So keep an eye on that. I have nothing on this total. Again, Texas State is just a weird team. They've continuously left points on the field, but that's just kind of the style that they play with.
Yeah, I think if you are betting this, there's not really too much on the injury front. Just a couple quick notes. Nash Jones has been out for a while on the Texas State offensive line. They didn't have Drew Donnelly, a receiver, last week. Torrey Spears, one of their safeties, missed. And their linebacker, Dan Foster, but he was on the depth chart, expects to return. They've gotten really good play out of their backup O-line, so I don't think these absences are too impactful. And then on Troy, Carson Burt didn't play in their last game, but he's their swing tackle anyway, so both teams pretty healthy.
Moving to a bigger conference, but I'm not sure better teams. Maryland and Northwestern, again, teams that Maryland at times has shown some promise, and they are nearly 2 touchdown favorites here in a 48-point total. Northwestern does show fight. They're just not very good. What is the angle that you see in this game?
I like Maryland, and I think this is a good time to buy them. They were a team I've been trying to sell this year. They just lost so much on defense, and that's really been a weakness for them, especially against the run. They rank 111, but shockingly, their secondary is held up pretty strong. They're 29th in coverage. They played some pretty decent teams, too. You can see Ohio State on the schedule. But yeah, Northwestern, all they do is throw the ball. So being strong in coverage, weak against the run, it's kind of a tailor-made matchup for Maryland to stop this Northwestern team. And we all know Maryland can score. They have a good offensive line. They returned a ton on that side of the ball, 34th in pass blocking. Tagovailoa is there. They've narrowed their receiver rotation. And Northwestern's the exact opposite. They're a defense which is lopsided towards the run. They're 50th in run defense, 93rd in coverage. So there's this pretty stark advantage on both sides of the ball, Maryland's direction, as long as they play to it. They should. They're an air raid offense. But I think Northwestern can still score a little bit here. Pacing also suits an over. I played Maryland minus 13.5 and over 48.5 here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. I definitely have no problem with 13.5. I see it on the screen. Over 48 though. I kind of like that. You mentioned the pace. Northwestern, as inept as they are, I think they will put up some points here, and Maryland's gonna have no problem moving the ball. This does seem like a pretty good spot for an over, and I never like to get into Northwestern games, but I'm going to probably join you on this total at over 48. It does seem like stylistically both defenses are uniquely not suited to handle what each offense does best.
Yeah, I'm surprised you can still find a 48 out there.
Yeah, it's there. So again, just speaks to the power of shopping it. It is out there at minus 110, so you can find it.
Injuries in this game, I think they also go with you. Northwestern has a couple defenders that have been missing time. Rishi Haggerty, safety, Jasheen Joseph. Maryland, they also have been without Dante Trader, safety, and Tarheeb Still. So if that scares you enough, maybe you could just play the over rather than a side. For what it's worth, I still like Maryland. There's a vast talent difference between these teams.
Well, there's a talent difference. There's no doubt about that. All right. This is one, you're going to have to talk to me about this because I saw this line. I didn't understand it. And then it started moving immediately. And I'm talking about Western Michigan and Eastern Michigan. Because I've shorted their win total, I've been watching Western Michigan, and they're not bad at all. And they're starting to take some money here. Now they're up to a 3-point favorite against Eastern Michigan, a little directional rivalry. I like Western Michigan in this game. Do you like them in this game?
I do. I bet them at minus 1.5.
Yeah, it's moved. Yeah.
They finally committed to their better signal caller. And shocker, last week against Ohio, Hayden Wolf nearly gets Western Michigan a win against a team that might be contending for the MAC title. Unbelievable, that decision to not play him at the beginning of the year. Helpful to your win total, though. So thank you.
Super helpful.
Yeah, thank you, coaching staff. But he's 69% completion, 6.5 yards per attempt, taking care of the ball. He doesn't run, but I mean, can't have it all at Western Michigan at this point. The offensive line has been awesome. I think that's part of the reason for Hayden Wolf's success. 18% pressure rate. They're top 50 in both pass blocking and run blocking. Run blocking, they're top 10. So, I mean, this team can run the ball. Jalen Buckley's back from injury. Eastern Michigan cannot score. This is one of the worst offenses, a bottom 10 offense in college football. 123rd in total offensive efficiency. They can't pass block. They have a 29% pressure rate allowed. So Western's defense definitely doesn't scare you, but do you trust Austin Smith heading out there? I certainly don't. He has some of the worst underlying metrics of any signal caller in college football. 56.5% completion, 5.8 yards per attempt. He has only 5 big-time throws and 17 turnover-worthy plays. 17. Somehow this has only resulted in 5 interceptions, but man, there is some negative regression coming from Austin Smith, and it's going to come soon against some of the better defenses. They've also been extremely injured on the offensive line. That doesn't help a unit that's already not good there. They've had 4 players, some of these rotational, some of these starters injured in some capacity. Dimitri Douglas, Broderick Jordan, Mickey Rowalinski, and Chris Mayo. But Chris Mayo, I think, will be back here. I don't know. It's still a bad unit. In the defensive backfield, TJ Peavy's been out. He's a safety. Kalen Gully's been out. He's a rotational corner for them who's had to play more because of injuries. I mean, this defense has been really beating up on some weak QBs too. you kind of have to go all the way back to, man, I don't even know. I don't know if they face a good quarterback this year. Here's the list. Ethan Kaliak-Manis from Minnesota, 7.8 yards per attempt. They faced a backup for UMass, Carlos Davis, 8.3 yards per attempt. Logan Smothers in Jacksonville State, they have like a 30% pass rate. Jace Bauer for Central Michigan, same thing. They face two quarterbacks for Ball State. They're both awful. Then they face Kent State and Rocky Lombardi. I mean, this defense, they're currently ranked 43rd in coverage. I don't know about this, man. Like, this could honestly be the worst slate of quarterbacks any team has faced all year. A lot of noise in this data. I like Western's offense. Their defense sucks, but I don't think Eastern can score on anybody. Really surprised here. Home field, I guess, is Eastern Michigan's, but not a big road trip by any means. Familiar with the area. I'm back in Western.
I am too. I like the spot quite a bit. Again, Western Michigan, they've been losing games. You mentioned Ohio. They went to Mississippi State and they were in that game. This team makes mistakes all over the field, but they can move the ball. Eastern Michigan, I saw them play UMass. They won by 2 points. They opened the year against Howard, and they won by 10 points. That should be a loss, basically. They have no quarter. You mentioned this Austin Smith guy. The other guy they used for a little while, he was even worse. They have nothing on offense. This might be maybe the worst offense in the country.
Dude, they were outgained 398 to 285 against Howard.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's disqualifying.
Oh, I also went and I looked at the offenses just by rank. I sorted them. The best offense they face all year is Jacksonville State, who's 64th, but they're 83rd in passing. The best passing offense efficiency-wise was Minnesota. They ranked 76th.
Yeah,
they faced four offenses outside the top 100 in total offensive efficiency. I don't even buy this defense.
No, how would we know? Again, some of these stylistic matchups are ridiculous. I'm fine with it at 3. I don't think 2.5's coming back, so I am fine with this number, though. Speaking of Minnesota, this is a real doozy. Oh, man. Michigan State, obviously a lost season. How Minnesota won that game, I'll never know. Just a ridiculous string of just nonsense. I was at dinner with an Iowa ticket. Real good. But we turn the page. 7-point spread here. Minnesota, 40-point total. What are we doing here?
Minnesota's had 2 of these games. One, they came out victorious over Iowa. The other one, they ended up with an L to Northwestern. So kind of averages out, I guess. This team stinks. They barely beat Louisiana. They've gotten clobbered in a ton of their matchups. I think their best win is probably Nebraska, another game they should have lost. This team is awful. I don't think Michigan State's any better, but I took 7.5. And honestly, I think you can boil it all down to, do we really think Minnesota or Michigan State are a touchdown favorite over any team in the country right now? Then we have another Big Ten team on the other side. Like, I just do not believe that either one of these teams should be favored by a touchdown over another. We can dive into some of the injuries, the inefficiencies of both teams. Minnesota's had a ton of injuries. Their best running back, Darius Taylor, he's been banged up in and out of the lineup. He aggravated his injury last week. Team seems optimistic, but you never know. That for what it's worth, they are like a steel trap with injuries. You truly don't know till warmups. But Chris Ottman-Bell's been banged up. One of their backups, Sean Tyler, got hurt at running back. They already lost Lameek Brockington, another receiver for the year. Bryce Williams, running backs, out for the year. Their stud linebacker, Cody Lindenberg, hasn't played at all. The defense hasn't been good. They lost a ton of production from the offseason. 95th in run defense. That's really what you fear against Michigan State, because Caden Hauser, he hasn't been the answer since he took over. He has 1 big-time throw, 8 turnover-worthy plays, negative rushing yards. He's playing behind a terrible offensive line who's 100th in pass blocking. The team is completely revolted against the coaching staff. They had Keyshawn Blackstock, one of their offensive tackles, hit the portal. Simeon Barrow, a defensive tackle, a starter, hit the portal. So, I mean, Michigan State's no good either, but I think you could just fall back on Nate Carter, honestly. He's the best player on the field for either team outside of maybe an injured Darius Taylor from Minnesota. But I'm expecting a low-scoring game, run heavy from both sides. That helps a team getting 7.5. But yeah, man, it's just, do we really think Michigan State is a touchdown worse than Minnesota? I would say no.
Any interest in shorting the total? I mean, obviously the total is low, but it's 40.
There's some interest there. I mean, both teams are slow and run heavy.
I honestly like the under. I do. Like, I know it's not Iowa, but
Yeah. I honestly, Ben, I have a blind spot for these totals that are really low, even though like they probably project value. Like basically any Iowa game you see and you're like, all right, I should be
came in
looking at it
under
under
last
here.
week
Yeah.
again.
It's just a blind spot for me. I agree with you. It's Michigan State and under for me.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, these are bad teams. Bad teams. But I get it. The value of the points is so important in a game that I honestly think might only have 1 or 2 touchdowns total. So keep that in mind. All right. We're just getting started here. We got plenty to get to, but it's never a bad time to talk about a little free money, a little bonus bet action, courtesy of Bet365. How about this? Here's 6 states: New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, and Iowa, Kentucky, and Colorado. If you're in any of those great states, look at you. Bet365 is in your area. That means money is right at your fingertips. All you got to do is click the link below. Put in $5. You deposit 10, you bet 5. Bet it on any game. Bet it on one of these greasy games and enjoy yourself. You know why? Because if you win your bet, that's awesome. You're going to get 150 in bonus bets. If you lose your bet, you're still getting 150 in bonus bets. It's that simple, win or lose. It's no better time to add that money to your bankroll, and then you can do whatever you want with it. Got to be 21 plus. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. I'm telling you right now, if you're in one of those states, you can back up, just press the rewind, listen to those states, take 5 minutes while you're watching the show, sign up and get that money, and then do something fun with it. Make it work for you. Marshall and Coastal Carolina. This is another game that I actually have I have a real actionable take here. We were talking about this game actually after the last episode. I was asking you about it because it's an interesting situation. Marshall's up to a 4-point favorite now. They're taking a little pressure. Is that the sign you lean to, or do you see something with your boys with Coastal that they can get the job done?
Yeah, breaks my heart, but I played Marshall. Coastal Carolina lost Grayson McCall. Apparently he's okay. Man, guy was stretchered off, taken to the hospital. So he's doubtful here. The coaching staff just straight up said that. But man, happy we get to probably see him again this year. But honestly, you could argue there's not a bigger drop-off quarterback starter to quarterback backup in the entire NCAA. And unfortunately, it's not just McCall. We lost Braden Bennett in their last game. He's the running back. He's a game-time decision. Jared Brown got hurt. Allegedly, he'll play. Stud receiver. They haven't had Braylon Ryan, an edge rusher, since UCLA. They didn't have their center last game. I think that's honestly just a benching, though. Like, he sucked to begin with, and their backup's no good anyway. Tyson Mobley, their wide receiver 3, decided to redshirt, wasn't getting enough opportunity in this just downright horrific Tim Beck offense. And Coastal, they haven't impressed me at times this year either. A couple games that they got lucky in one, Jacksonville State. That game, they were dead even yards per play. Should have been way closer than the final score indicated. But then they also should have a win over Georgia State. They outgained them pretty soundly. Meanwhile, like Georgia Southern was similar for this team. They're a hard team to peg with the injuries right now. And I don't buy their offense without McCall at all. Jarrett Guest, their backup, career 56% completion, same amount of big-time throws, turnover-worthy plays, doesn't run. The offensive line has been shaky at best this year. We've seen them definitely get beaten by teams that can pressure the quarterback, which is exactly what Marshall does. They're a defensive team, 13th in total defense, 40th in pass rush, 22nd in run defense, 14th in coverage. That's terrifying when you're facing a backup quarterback, for the Coastal side, that is. Now, Marshall has tons of problems scoring themselves. Their quarterback is horrible. He makes awful decisions. Last week, he took a million sacks. He had like negative 50 rushing yards. But all we need him to do is just deliver the ball to his pass catcher. 67% completion, 7 yards per attempt. Just cut the turnovers out. Stop taking sacks. You shouldn't be taking them anyway. Your offensive line is 44th in pass blocking. The big question here for me is Rasheen Lee's also injured. Their coach is an absolute moron and won't answer questions about him.
I saw that.
So we'll see on Rasheen Lee's status before the game. I like Marshall anyway, but I would take them beyond 4 if he's active.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Last thing, Coastal's defense is 89th in run D, so I think that's a big mismatch they can exploit.
Yeah, and I know you kind of just ran through everything, and maybe I just missed how bad. Like, who is the Coastal quarterback?
Jarrett Guest.
Is that a real person?
Yeah, he's not good.
Okay.
56% completion.
Is he
does have a career. Sorry.
Is he a transfer or he's just been there?
He's been there for, I think he's a 4th year now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know who this is.
Park behind McCall, though. But yeah, anyway, there's a lot of mismatch favoring Marshall. Their coach is bad, so I can understand why you might want to pass.
Yeah, I'm not passing. I like the spot with Marshall. I've watched it. I agree. I want Rasheen Ali on this field, obviously. But I think at 4, you're still getting a pretty damn good price.
I
North,
like Ethan Payne, the backup.
yeah, I do too. I mean, I've watched Marshall a little bit, and it's just a weird team because at times I'm like, all right, this team can really move the ball. And then at other times I'm just like, what exactly is this team doing? That NC State game was wild. Maybe I'm just like overrating it, but I don't know.
I'll say this about last week. A lot of you probably saw them on a weekday game. They have extra days rest here, and they struggled last game. They played James Madison, who has one of the best defensive lines in the country. They're second in run defense. So, yeah, Ethan Payne was running into a brick wall. Cam Fancher ends up with like negative 50 rushing yards. Now you play Coastal, who's 94th in pass rush. It's like the total, and 89th in run defense. It's the total opposite matchup that they just had.
Yeah, I like that. It honestly leads me to kind of a buy low spot because I watched that game from start to finish too. JMU's nasty. They're just good. North Texas and Memphis. I really have only seen North Texas once. It was in week 0 or week 1 against Cal, and they disgraced themselves. Now it's a 7.5-point spread, nearly a 70-point total. Obviously, this game is expected to get up and down. Where's the angle that you see in this spot?
I played North Texas plus 8.5 as the home team. I don't have a vast difference in power rating between these two teams. And I think a lot of people overrate Memphis. They lost to Missouri by 7 points. Missouri pulled all their starters. So that doesn't really say much to me. They should have lost to Boise State, who's not a team I'm very fond of. They were outgained yards per play. They had the same exact yards per play as Navy, who's a team that's really bad. They just beat up on UAB, who played 3 quarterbacks because Jacob Zeno wasn't out. A lot of situational things that kind of favor Memphis, but I think you could poke holes in them all. There's a ton of issues I see with this team. Their defense is horrible. They're 99th in total defensive efficiency, 112th against the run. Where they get you is on offense. That's why they're a shootout team, and you see this total so high. But they also were on their third string kicker. Somehow they got 2 kickers injured. They lost their guard, Jonah Gamble, in their last game. That's not positive. They're down 2 starters in their secondary, which is also an issue. And I don't know. Blake Watson's been banged up for this team. It's an offense I like, but a defense I think is very suspect. And they've been winning games by the narrowest of margins and arguably should have been losing some against the teams I'm not really buying. Meanwhile, North Texas, I think they've put a lot together since that game against Cal. Chandler Rogers has been playing lights out, which I wasn't going to expect. 65% completion, 8 yards per attempt, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he only has 1 turnover-worthy play all year. The guy does an amazing job taking over the ball. It's the opposite of Texas State. This offense has long, methodical drives, and they just will not turn the ball over. And they have a lot of good players, an awesome run game. Even losing Isaiah Johnson and Ikeaka Ragsdale, I mean, they still have Adei and, man, just an awesome Attaway still there. They're also really healthy on defense. All their starters on defense are still there and not injured, which is positive. So you kind of parallel these two defenses. North Texas is 66. Memphis is 99th. And North Texas is strong across the board, whereas Memphis has a big weakness against the run. This year with the new coaching staff, North Texas has thrown a lot, but we know they can run behind that dynamic offensive line and run game with the running backs. I have a slight edge Memphis's direction on offense. Pretty decent edge North Texas's direction on defense. I don't see how you power rate this outside of touchdown, man. So yeah, I took the 8.5. I'm willing to take the current spread. I think this should probably be closer to like a field goal.
So yeah, I mean, you just said it. You're fine with their 7.5 all over the board.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Okay. Ooh, little mean green action. I can get down with this. That's not one I had on my radar. Now, in years past, I remember the Josh Allen years, Boise State going to Wyoming at times, then Wyoming having to return to the blue turf. That's what we get here. Boise State is a 5-point home favorite. Clearly not the same team of years past. You just mentioned them in the last recap. I like targeting Wyoming more at home. That's not what we get here. But is there a spot? Is there a total in this ugly, ugly Mountain West game?
Yeah, I still like Wyoming. I love playing them at home. And a lot of teams in this conference, they get pretty gnarly road trips both to Boise and to Wyoming. I mean, Wyoming traveling to Boise, they shave off a lot of that home field advantage. It's not a long travel trip.
No.
Wyoming's used to playing in like horrific conditions up in Laramie. So I don't think Boise has the same home field as, say, like facing Nevada or Hawaii or something like that. But this Wyoming team, I think, is really sneaky. They're getting healthier. Their stud running back, Harrison Whaley, is back. They also are getting back Tyresis Davis, one of their stud corners. He hasn't played in a couple games. Wyoming off the bye, all these guys are back and on the depth chart. And the new Wyoming beat, bless this guy's heart, he does an awesome job. All of them are expected to play. Very different from the Wyoming beat of the past. But this team is really good. 36th in total defense. They do a great job stopping the run and the pass. They're 51st on offense. They're one-dimensional. We know this coming in. Andrew Peasley, he's not a dynamic signal caller, but he takes care of the ball. He only has 5 turnover-worthy plays and 2 interceptions. And this team is going to run it down your throat. Having Harrison Whaley back is awesome. This team is 5th in the country in run blocking. I don't know how they get these guys. Like, I used to be a Craig Bull hater. Now I kind of understand. It's hard to get transfers at Wyoming, but the guys he gets, he coaches up extremely well. Somehow all these guys that are like 2 and 3 stars, like to have the 5th most efficient run blocking unit in the country is unreal. Then you look at Boise. I can't see a world where this team is favored even at home. 126th in total defense, 123rd against the run. When Wyoming passes, they might even have success because this defense is 109th in coverage. And then we just mentioned Wyoming's offense being 51st in efficiency, surprisingly. I think people view this Boise offense as being really efficient. They're 56th. Wyoming has an edge here. Not a big one, but they do. And then the only other thing I'll mention, I hate this Boise State coaching staff. I think Bush Hamdan is an absolute doofus. They're getting back George Helani this week. Ashton Genty has played like the best running back in the country. I've been waiting for this moment all year where Bush goes out there and puts them in a 50-50 timeshare just like he did all last year and before this year. This coach is incapable of making good decisions.
Sign me. I mean, listen, I've always been a Wyoming backer. I haven't been the biggest fan of Wyoming's coach either in the past, but they do have something working. Yeah, fine. I mean, do you have any interest in like a plus 170?
Yeah, I think Wyoming is live. Like Boise, man.
Yeah, Boise's rough. I've seen Boise play. I don't know what they're doing with that quarter. It's just not a good year.
Yeah, they're playing 2 QBs. Neither of them are good. Talon is good. He can run, but Bush Hamdan wants to drop him back.
Yep. It's bad. Before we get I will say this has nothing to do with this play, but I'm watching, and I'm sure you're like, why are you watching this? I'm watching Montana State the other day. Sean Chambers is there.
Sorry, say that again.
Sean Chambers, remember him, the old Wyoming quarterback?
Yeah, I just started laughing when you're like, I was watching.
Yeah, I was Montana State's
Montana
good.
State.
Yeah, I was watching them. They were beating the hell out of a bad team. I don't even remember who it was. And yeah, Sean Chambers is there running around. Shout out to that guy, former Wyoming signal caller. Glad he landed on his feet. They're good.
Oh my gosh.
Old Dominion and James Madison. We talked about James Madison a little bit already. Woo, 20.5 point spread, a 49-point total. Are the Monarchs that bad, or is JMU just this good?
I think JMU is really good, but I want to sell them at some point this year. They've been very fortunate in a couple games. They should have lost to Virginia, outgained 6.5 yards per play to 5.9. No shame in that. Virginia's a Power 5 team. Not a good one, but still Power 5, G5. They should have lost to Troy. Troy outgained them yards per play as well. Troy missed a field goal. They had a turnover on downs at the JMU 39, another one at the JMU 43. And, I mean, they got all the way to the 33-yard line on that drive, and then penalties got them. They also threw an interception. I mean, Troy easily should have beat JMU. And power ratings, I think, show this. Both teams have good defenses. So right away, I think it's a low-scoring affair. Anytime you're getting – I took this at 20.5. I also took it a 17 on Sunday. So I have 2 lines, one of them being really bad. But I expect this to be an extremely low-scoring affair. Old Dominion's offense is bad. They're facing an elite defense. JMU 9th in total defensive efficiency. ODU is 125th on offense, and there's a massive mismatch here. The pass rush for James Madison is very good. Old Dominion's offensive line is terrible. They're 129th in pass blocking. And JMU actually got a couple guys back from injury that have been just some of the best defenders on the field. Jalen Green, their edge, he's electric. James Carpenter's very good too on the interior. They also got Jalen Walker back, their best linebacker. So it's a healthy JMU. But I also am not sure JMU is going to be able to score. Their offense is 92nd, and they've really sputtered in some spots. They just put up 20 points on Marshall and had a ton of inefficiency there. Old Dominion's defense is 38th, and they're really good against the run. They're 8th here. JMU doesn't exactly have a dynamic passing attack. A lot of what they do is with McLeod on the ground, their running backs. So I overall think this is a really low-scoring game, and anytime you're getting 20.5 points with an underdog with a good defense, I think Old Dominion can do just enough. I do not think they're live for an upset or something like this, but I think they can keep it close in a game where I don't know if this, touches 35 points.
You're getting 20.5. I totally get it. It could tick to 21 if you want to wait. There's a little pressure there. I'm not sure if you get the full 3 touchdowns, but it is a lot of points for a 49-point total. Oh, now we're getting serious. So this game, I really wasn't paying that close attention, but I might have to go back and watch the Nevada game last week. That set back society as a whole. New Mexico and Nevada. Now Nevada's a 1-point favorite. What a world. Disgusting Mountain West game here. Did the Wolfpack find it? Do they now have the juices flowing, or do they just immediately go back to being awful?
Yeah, I think you laid this out very well. That was maybe the worst game we'll see all of Division I college football.
Worst game of the year. For San Diego State, we both, by the way, knew how bad San Diego State was. We said it. We said it on this very show that as bad as Nevada is, there's no way that you could lay points with San Diego State. It's just, it was disgusting, and I couldn't do anything with it. But what do we do here?
Yeah, that's exactly it. They power rated closely, which is saying a lot because Nevada's terrible, but I didn't have the stomach for it. I have the stomach for this, though. I'll take New Mexico. I think this is going to continue moving. I took this at plus 2.5. I think it might end up going through 0 at the end of the day before kickoff. I'll just run through this quickly. Nevada's terrible at every single unit. They're outside the top 109. Offense, pass blocking, run defense, pass rush, coverage. They don't do anything well. They have a terrible quarterback in Brendan Lewis. He failed at Colorado last year, which is saying a lot. All he does is run, and that's not good. He leads the team in rushing, so they don't have any semblance of a run game. Tons of pressure allowed for this team. You look at New Mexico, they also suck on defense. They're 132nd in total defensive efficiency, but they have a good offense. 36th overall, awesome offensive line, really good pass blocking, only allowing a 17% pressure rate. All we need is Dylan Hopkins to take care of the ball, and they should run over Nevada, even with this team being at home. Hopkins is a 59% completion, 7.8 yards per attempt, 10 scores, 4 picks. Play a clean game, and you should win this no problem. I think this goes through 0. I can't see a world where Nevada's favored.
Only one question for you. If you were starting a team, would you rather have Brendan Lewis or Austin Smith?
Lewis, because he can run. I feel like he can do more with the playbook.
Fair enough.
What a great question.
Yeah, that's the stuff that we only get on this show. Miami of Ohio. We got a couple more games, then we'll go rapid fire before we get out of here. Miami of Ohio and Ohio. This is a real good game in the MAC. A 7-point spread, a 39.5-point total. Should be pretty defensively sound. Is that how you see it, or do you see a different angle here?
Definitely see it being defensively sound. I think part of the reason the total's coming down is Brett Gabbert. He had a severe injury. His season is over, which is a little unfortunate for this team. And I think you can still play Miami, Ohio. I played it myself at 7. I would honestly wait seeing where money's come in. I think you might get a 7.5, but ultimately I'm okay with the 7. And a lot of this comes down to their experienced backup. Avion Smith, he was in the same situation last year, played a ton of football, and he's definitely a downgrade from Gabbert. But I think there's a couple things working in his favor here. One is the experience. 2, he has better weapons than the last time we saw him. Last time out, 49.3% completion, 5.9 yards per attempt, 11 touchdowns, 5 picks. So he's more of a game manager. He's extremely mobile, so the playbook does change when he's out there, 4.7 yards per carry. But I mean, now we're talking about Larvadane being there. He's one of the best receivers in the G5. They have Notre Dame transfer Wilkins. I mean, this is a good receiving unit, way better than what he had previously. So I kind of like what he's throwing to. And I think the drop off between Gabbard and Avion Smith might be overblown. Plus, he's playing behind a good offensive line. Just a 22% pressure rate. They're 67th in pass blocking. That's good. So I personally believe this is a little bit of an overreaction to the Gabbard injury when we do have a very experienced signal caller behind him. Not a lot of MAC teams, not a lot of teams in the country have the luxury of this. And they also have a pretty decent defense. They're 25th overall, good against the run and the pass, 31st in run defense, 40th in coverage. Curtis Rourke has not been the same this year. I mean, he's coming off a severe injury, 63% completion, 6.9 yards per attempt. He has 8 big-time throws, 10 turnover-worthy plays, still runs a little bit. But yeah, it hasn't been the same year. They lost Jacoby Jones, one of their receivers for the year. It's not the same Ohio team that we saw last year. I think they're still very strong, but I think they've dropped off in some spots, especially in coverage. 85th in coverage, 65th in run defense. I think Miami, Ohio moves the ball just fine here. I'll take anything outside a touchdown with them.
Yeah, there's minus 120s on the Ohio side. So I do think this is going to pop to 7.5 if you wait on Miami of Ohio, if you want that extra hook. I totally get that. All right, a couple more games left, then we're going to sum up our best bets. If you have any questions, anything we didn't get to, at Matt_Gajeski, at JazzRazDFS. But I have to mention, I'm on Odd Chopper right now. And yes, college football is there. And of course, the NFL is there. Well, NBA is here as well. And just the work that these tools can do for you in the NBA specifically, but any of the sports, is immense. If you are looking to come in, we're running a special deal, 50% off with the code SLAMDUNK50. The link is below. Come on in for the week. Test it out for 50% off. See what we're about. Those premium tools, it does the work for you. Edges pop up all day. You can filter by any book. You can type in your bankroll, and it gives you the optimal amount to bet. All things to make you a better, and more profitable better. Come join us at Odd Chopper here. Again, just test it out. See what you think. See if it fits kind of your style of betting. I believe that it will. I've integrated it into my process as well. We are going to the South Alabama game. This is another big game here. 10.5 point spread. Louisiana's shown they're a competent team. Can they handle going on the road in a spot like this? Or is this South Alabama really laying down the wood, minus 10.5, double-digit win?
It's a ton of points for teams I have pretty even. Yeah, man, I like Louisiana. The only reason I haven't taken this is South Alabama's taking money. I'm not incentivized to bet this right now. I'll try to take the best line later in the week, but I am without a doubt going to play the Louisiana side, plus 10, plus 10.5, whatever the number ends up being. Hopefully we can find like an 11 or something. Again, you and I talked about this previously. Every point matters in college football, even if it's an 11 versus a 10. Kickers are really bad, so I'll take them. But anyway, power ratings very similar. Give a slight edge South Alabama's direction on defense. They're 39th in total D. Louisiana's 41st. Not a big gap here. And then on offense, I actually have Louisiana power rated drastically ahead of South Alabama. 29th, Louisiana total offensive efficiency. South Alabama's 53rd. I think this offense is somewhat limited. They do not have a good offensive line. They're 94th in pass blocking, allowing a 28.5% pressure rate to Carter Bradley, who's played very well through it, I got to say, but still 4 big-time throws, 7 turnover-worthy plays. He can't run. This team, I think, is a bit overrated, coming off wins against Louisiana Monroe and Southern Miss. Meanwhile, Louisiana's played pretty tough games. Most recently, they beat Texas State, lost to Georgia State by 3 in a very competitive game. They lost to Minnesota in a game where they averaged 6.7 yards per play to Minnesota's 5.3. Just absolutely should have beat the Gophers. I think we're buying low on Louisiana right now. I'll wait on it, but I fully anticipate playing them.
Yeah, 10.5 is out there right now. I'm staring at it on DraftKings. So you can get that number. And I agree. I like South Alabama. They're a good team. That win against Oklahoma State looks better every single week. But this is a lot of points for a Louisiana team that also knows what they're doing. So I'm probably going to join you there as well. Last game, I feel like we talk about them every week, and it's always me recommending them, and then they never cover, and then I recommend them again. That would be Arkansas State. They take on Louisiana Monroe. It's a much more competitive spread than maybe some of the games that we've seen pretty recently for them. 2.5 point spread. Which side do you lean to here?
It's almost the same situation as the game we just talked about. I'm going to play Arkansas State. but money's coming on Monroe, and I'm just going to wait. And, maybe even a 3 pops. I don't know. Monroe's taking a decent amount of money. But anyway, you're not incentivized to bet this right now. Arkansas State I have is a pretty good offense, 67th in total offensive efficiency, and they're good running the ball as well. It's not just Jalen Rayner out there, who's been excellent, and he's really mobile, but good offensive line, 35th in run blocking, 79th in pass blocking. And I always like to highlight the skill position players like Jaquez Cross. He's a Purdue transfer. Courtney Jackson came from Syracuse. Corey Ruckert spent some time at South Carolina. They have good players, especially in the skill position. So they're kind of a shootout team. Offense is awesome. Defense is suspect, 102nd overall. But Monroe, for some of the strides they've made, they're still outside the top 100 in most metrics. 122nd ranked offense, 104th defense. So yeah, defenses are almost identical here. But Monroe 122nd in offensive efficiency versus the 67th offense in Arkansas State. I don't know mathematically how you get this to anything beyond a pick 'em. So I'll take points with Arkansas State when I can get them. Just going to wait and take hopefully a better number on Saturday morning.
Could get to 3, no doubt about it. There are some 2.5s out there. Monroe
also lost one of their best corners, Carlin Viggers.
I'm telling you, this Arkansas State quarterback is just, he's been awesome. And I feel like I haven't been paid off from it just yet, but I'm all about that. I'm definitely joining Arkansas State. Just want to see if we can get a 3. All right. We've talked about a bunch of games. Talked about Bet365. So maybe you took advantage of that deal. Again, link is below. You got your $150 now in bonus bets. You're looking to spend some of that money on some greasy college football. What are your priorities for these games that we talked about?
Yeah, I have a really hard time picking. I like this slate a lot, which, is probably the kiss of death.
Of course.
But to rank them, Western Michigan, like the current number, -3. I took 1.5 myself over Eastern. Still think we're getting a discounted Western team after their coaching staff didn't play Hayden Wolf to start the year. And I think Eastern's significantly overrated. We rattled the quarterbacks they've faced this year. I think Ethan Kaliak-Manis is probably the best one they've played all year, which is saying a lot. Second for me is going to be North Texas. I think anything outside of touchdowns fine, and good things 7.5 is readily available here.
Yep.
I power rate these teams almost even, with Memphis having an awful defense and North Texas actually having an edge on that side of the ball. They're also the home team, so I think we're buying low on North Texas. And last one for me, I'll say New Mexico. If you can find this, I would favor them through like 3 here. I took them plus 2.5. You can find ones, pick'ems readily available. They're facing the worst team in the country, and while both teams have bad defenses, New Mexico's offense, significant advantage over Nevada.
Adding one more in for us. Give me them Cowboys going into the blue turf. 5-point spread. You have sold me on Wyoming. I can't stand Boise. I really like what this team is doing. This is a card. Look at those beauties. We have got them locked and loaded here. Again, plenty more to get to. We've got you covered always on OddsShopper. Matt will have breakdowns for all these games as well. And if you have any questions, just hit us up on Twitter. Let us know in the comments. We appreciate everybody supporting this show. It's going to be a good week. I need a turnaround week, and I'm going to get it. The last question before I let you go. What am I in for when I sit down in my seat for Army and UMass? Is it going to be ugly? Is it going to be high scoring? Is it going to be a beatdown?
I bet the under. I actually kind of like UMass. I think they're underrated here. But betting UMass, you really got to plug your nose. But man, we didn't talk about this on the show because the analysis I think is pretty easy. It's just pacing, man. Like the pace is going to be so slow. Aside from Army being 130th in pace, UMass is outside the top 100. I know both teams don't have good defenses, but do we really think the pace is going to be fast enough for 48 points to come in?
Probably not. One long Army drive that doesn't end in 6, you could forget it. Those are like 9-minute drives.
UMass, they kind of run like a fancy triple option. All they do
is
they got
their own issues. I might go down and maybe I call a couple plays. So we'll see what we get there. I can't wait to see it. Appreciate you guys again. Thanks as always for tuning in. Links are in the description. OddsShopper Premium, Bet365, and everything in between. For me, for Matt, and for all these greasy games, enjoy the week of football. Week 10 upon us next week, and we will be back with more episodes then. Until next time, let's cash some tickets. We'll talk to you guys soon.